is because it's energetically more beneficial to create red photons than blue photons, because you get more red photons per watt than you do blue photons per watt. But you do need to have blue in the spectrum for plants. Blue is the component in the spectrum that keeps the plant short. It affects the internode elongation in the plants. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm talking about commercial grow LED technology, and I'm not going to focus much on retail types of technology, because there are LED fixtures in the retail space that that I'm not going to address. I'm going to address commercial only in this particular presentation. So the key features for commercial LED grow technology include the features you need to be looking for are at least 50% energy savings. That includes the energy savings to the fixture, as well as the energy savings that you achieve through the reduced heat produced by the LED fixture. Another key feature would be wet location rating, so what I'm doing now is I'm describing the differences between a retail design fixture and a commercial design fixture. Commercial has to be tough, durable, long-lasting, and do the job, because your business depends on the yields that you produce. And if you are not giving your plants enough light, you're not going to grow the plant big enough, you're not going to get the yield, you're not going to get the revenue generation as a result of that. So the market's mostly retail fixtures. You're looking for a suitable spectrum for germination, for veg phase, and for flowering phase. I would advocate that there's a spectrum that's good for a single spectrum that's good for all of those phases of growth. And I know that's probably going to rub some people the wrong way, because they think that you have to veg under metal halide, and they think you have to flower under HBS. And I can show that that's not necessarily true. It's just the way it's been done for a long time. We're talking about adopting a new technology in place of old technology. So that's where this conversation is going to go, is how we do that with LED technology. You need high photosynthetically active radiation output to maintain the light levels for yield. You need a spectrum that's tailored to take advantage of that efficient absorption spectrum that I showed earlier. Passive cooling is important, because once you put a mechanical device on a fixture, now you have a mechanical device that can fail. And if you're requiring that mechanical device to keep your fixture cool, then it fails, then your fixture fails. Extremely important, the last bullet, proven success stories with academic and commercial partners, case studies, real data, and tests that were performed correctly. And that's missing in a lot of the data surrounding LED technology and the application of growth. Next slide, please. Okay, keys to plant growth. This is another Plant Growth 101 slide. Light intensity. The more light intensity you give the plants, the more growth you're going to get. As long as it's in that photosynthetically active radiation range between 400 and 700 nanometers. Optimized spectrum. Again, focusing on those portions of the curve where you get maximum absorption of light for those wavelengths. Light uniformity. This is extremely important, because when you look at HID technology, you have a lamp over a certain area of grow. The light intensity is very high right in the middle, and then it diminishes very rapidly as you get to the edges of that grow area. You get a very disproportional yield per plant in a scenario like that. With LEDs, you can spread the light out more evenly over that canopy, and every plant contributes more to the overall yield of your crop. And then day length. I think many of us know, if you're growing plants, you veg them under long days and you flower them under short days. The day length is what determines the trigger for plants to flower. Next slide, please. Okay, so a comparison between LED and traditional sources. We have spectral management control, so we can pick LEDs in different portions of the spectrum that we can fine tune and maximize the efficiency of the overall spectrum to grow plants. Light intensity, we're able to show now with LED technology, we can meet and beat existing HID technology. So as I mentioned before, more light, more yield, more dollars in your pocket. Heat management, significant reduction in heat when you go to LED technology. LEDs are going to significantly reduce the heat load to your system. That's going to trickle back to the tonnage of HVAC that you need to cool if you're cooling using air conditioning. Significant savings in energy. Significant energy savings, 40% directly to the fixture. So that means with LED technology, I can create the same amount of light which would then be the same amount of growth and yield as HID technology, but we can do it for 40% less energy directly to the fixture. You add in the heat removal and the heat savings component, and that's going to add another significant level of energy savings, which means money savings in producing your product. Optical flexibility, being able to control where that light goes on your canopy is very important. You do not want to be shining light on the floor or the walls because those are not leaves, and if light is not hitting your leaf, it's not contributing to your growth and your yield or your growth improvement. And long life, LEDs last a very long time. 50,000 hours in a 12-hour photo period is a little over 11 years. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a kind of a quick performance analysis comparing 600 watt high pressure sodium, 600 watt metal halide, and a 390 watt LED fixture. The first column shows the actual wattage of these three technologies comparing one to the other. So you'll notice that a 600 watt lamp is not 600 watts of electricity, it's 660 watts of electricity because the ballast is not 100% efficient, so there's an additional energy consumption from the ballast. So the second column says PAR, that's photosynthetically active radiation, micromoles per second. That's a unit we didn't talk about yet, and that's an actual production rate of photons out of the fixture. That tells you the potential of how much light comes out of the fixture, the potential of light you can deliver to your plant. So when you compare the first two columns, you'll see that 600 watt high pressure sodium, 600 watt metal halide produce around 600 micromoles per second. There's a 390 watt LED fixture that produces 640 micromoles per second. That's an increase in light level for less watts going in. When you look at the efficiency rate, that's micromoles per joule. This is equivalent to micromoles per watt. A joule is the SI unit for energy, so you convert it to a joule of energy. And so you'll notice that you're less than 1 micromole per joule with HID technology, and you're at 1.6 or above with LED technology. That's a significant improvement. And later, I'm going to show you some case studies where this manifests itself in additional yield and revenue. Next slide, please. So the keys to making the transition to LED, you need to measure the light level in your grow facility. And this is extremely important, and hardly anyone does it. So you need to know what your baseline light level is in order to make the transition from HID to LED technology. You need to understand how much light you're giving your plants now in order to design an LED solution that meets or beats that light level, which then translates into additional yield, equal or additional yield with less energy consumed. So in order to model the LED system, you have to do photometric analysis. So that's collecting all this data that allows you to do this modeling. This is rare in LED technology in this industry. A lot of people don't understand these fundamental facts of measuring light and translating it into modeling a system that allows a grower to make an educated decision on what technology to use and what the return on investment analysis is for that. And if you're interested in return on investment analysis for LED technology, we have a return on investment or an ROI calculation tool over in our booth in the corner. So I encourage you all to go visit that while you're here to see, plugging in your data, what the size of your grow is and what you're doing now, and see how it compares to LED technology. Another very important component is don't trust manufacturers' claims about HID technology, because if they aren't measuring the light and they're not able to use that data, they're making claims that could be very erroneous. And if you're taking those claims at face value, you could be very disappointed in the outcome of your grow because you're not giving them the amount of light. You're not giving your plants the amount of light that they need to create that yield that you're expecting. In order to do that, you need to measure in a photometric lab the photon output, micromoles per second. You convert that efficiency by dividing it by the watts you've used to create that light, and it needs to be verified at a third-party lab. So, very important, very rare in this industry right now. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of common misconceptions about LED technology, and we're overcoming an LED black eye syndrome in the industry. A lot of people have tried LED, and they had very poor results, and they blame the technology that it doesn't work. The truth is, you don't blame the LED, you blame You blame the modeling of the system. They're not providing the right data to model what light level you need in your grow facility. So don't trust those claims unless they have that third-party measurement analysis in order to make those calculations. Another common misconception is that plants won't flower under LED lights. Plants will flower just fine under LED lights. We have some samples and examples over in our booth today of plants that have flowered perfectly well under LED lights. It's all about the spectrum, the amount of light, and the distribution of light over that spectrum. Another common misconception is that plants need far red light. You'll see that people will make claims, far red light's necessary for flowering. It is not necessary for flowering. Far red light is associated with phytochrome, a chemical in the plant that absorbs light and it responds to red and far red light. But photoperiod is what triggers flowering in the plants, not the spectrum. That's very important. And people will make claims that it does. Next one, plants need UV light. UV light is below 400 nanometers. It doesn't contribute significantly to photosynthesis, so it's not adding to your yield, but it could be very important in improving the quality of your product because high energy photons will have will cause a reaction in the plants that could raise the chemical profile of the plant. So secondary metabolites are produced in lighting stressful situations for plants. So UV can be important. And another common misconception, plants need an electric light source that simulates sunlight. That's absolutely false. Sunlight creates a lot of wavelengths of light that are outside that PAR range. And you're using watts to create photons of light that the plants can't use. That's absolutely wasteful. You don't want to do that. You want to focus the spectrum to be between 400 and 700 nanometers. Next slide, please. So red flag warning, this is, if you are looking at LED technology for your grow operation and you're evaluating different manufacturers' products, you're looking at spec sheets. Things to look out for on spec sheets are the things I mentioned before about the micromoles per second and the efficiency, the micromoles per joule. You need to have those two things on the spec sheet. If they don't have those on the spec sheet, you cannot make any determination of how that technology can be useful in your grow. Lumens are not the correct lighting units for plant lighting, and you'll see that a lot. People will say, this fixture has so many lumens, it's applicable for grow. It has more lumens than another technology. An example of that, lumens are measured based on the spectrum. The spectrum is important for the lumen measurement. If you have a high lumen fixture, for example, a 600 watt high pressure sodium has around 60,000 lumens. But you only have about 600 micromoles of PAR light in it. In comparison, an LED fixture where we've now maximized the efficiency of the spectrum, you can see that the lumens are very low because there's not much green light in there. More green light, more lumens. More green light, less absorption by the plant. More green light, less yield. So there's 1/4, 25% of the lumens in the LED fixture, but you have more light that's useful for growing plants. So lumens are not the unit for light measurement for plants. Photosynthetically active radiation measurements directly under the fixture. I see this a lot. People will take an instantaneous measurement directly under the lamp and they'll report some very, very high ppf level. You have to consider the average light level over your entire canopy, and it doesn't take that into account. Individual LED wattage is not the way to rate the fixture. It should be the actual the actual wattage consumed by the fixture to create that light. So if someone has 100 5-watt LEDs, it's not a 500 watt fixture. It could be a lot less than that if you underdrive the LED. So you have to be very careful about looking at this data critically in order to make a good, sound decision on the LED technology that you choose. There's no magic growth spectrum, I mentioned that before. You just want to capitalize on finding wavelengths of LEDs with wavelengths that match those high absorption portions of that photosynthetically active radiation absorption. The grow area. If a fixture is expressed in ways, one fixture is good for a 4x4 area, that tells you nothing about the light level, it tells you nothing about the mounting height, it tells you nothing about the target efficiency. All of that has to be considered when you're incorporating LEDs in place of HID. So, on my soapbox now, demand from manufacturer spec sheets, these very critical and important units. Micromoles per second, which is the total output of the fixture. Micromoles per joule, which is the efficiency, the amount of light that you create per watt consumed. The actual fixture wattage, not the sum of the LEDs by how much they could potentially be driven. Average PAR levels over the grow area that's defined. An independent certified photometric lab analysis so that you have referenced data in order to feed into your model so that you can come up with a perfect solution for your growing. Most importantly, legitimate case studies. This is very weak in the industry right now with regard to partnering with academic institutions and commercial partners to validate the data that you've modeled. And we're in the process of doing that now, and I'll show you some examples of that. Next slide, please. Sorry. Next slide, please. All right, case studies. We are working with Utah State University Crop Physiology Lab, Logan, Utah, and they are providing a lot of the photometric analysis for us, as well as a third-party photometric lab in Georgia. And so we do a lot of testing with them. They're fitting this technology into their normal academic program, and we're getting the benefit of that, of the case studies that they're doing. We're doing work with Denver Relief Medical Marijuana Center in Denver, strain-wise, also in Denver, and Mapito USA, and we have Eric from Mapito here over in our booth. So if you have any questions, you can ask him directly about his incorporation of LED technology into his grow. With Denver Relief, we've done 3 different strains, and with strain-wise, we've done 40 different strains in 2 back-to-back rows, and we'll show you the data from that. Next slide, please. So from Denver Relief, there's 2 tables here. The first one is a strain called Biodiesel, which is one of the highest THC ranked strains that High Times magazine measured. And the bottom one is a landrace sativa Durban poison that they grow. So if you look at the table, you'll see there's HPS versus LED in the 2 rows, and then the columns are the overall dry weight in grams converted to ounces converted to pounds. How much power it took to create that weight, the THC concentration, and now your efficiency in grams per kilowatt hour. So you see significant improvements in the efficiency and significant reductions in the power that's used to do that. So the 2 of those are related. For Durban poison, you see the same thing. There's an increase in the yield, there's a decrease in the wattage consumed, and a significant increase in the electrical efficiency of creating your crop for how many watts that you used. Next slide, please. Strain-wise is the second case study that we've done. 40 strains grown in 2 back-to-back studies. And I'm not showing all 40 strains here. I'm showing you the ones that had direct HPS to LED comparisons. So in this case, you have dry bud weight per plant in grams for HPS for this number of strains. LED dry bud weight per plant. You notice that all the numbers are going up. The percent increase in yield from HID to LED, in many cases around 50%. There's a couple of really good ones here. 200%, 100% increase in yield. So when you look at the efficiency now, HPS, grams per kilowatt hour, this is an extremely important metric. So you'll notice that in this case, this is very consistent with traditional grows, to be between about a half a gram and maybe 3/4 of a gram per kilowatt hour under HID lighting or high pressure sodium lighting. When you go to LED, look at the jump in efficiency. That is extremely important for calculating and measuring and modeling and predicting the yields you will get based on how many watts that you use. So watts equals dollars, grams equals dollars. These are very important numbers to keep in mind when you're looking at incorporating LED technology. Extremely important results that we're seeing. Next slide, please. Okay, so what does this mean in terms of dollars and cents? When we take the yield that we grew under HPS and the yield that we grew under LED, this is all the strains together. We got under high pressure sodium 29 pounds, under LED we got 36 pounds. It's a pretty big difference. So if you do the math on this, if a pound of medical marijuana in Denver is $3,200 and a pound for rec is $7,600. It's a pretty big difference, right? So you start calculating what the revenue was for 29 pounds. It's $93,000 for medical. It's $224,000 for rec, if you were to sell it all in the recreational market. You use 19,000 kilowatt hours, and at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, that's about $1,900 in electricity to create that yield. When you go to LED, the numbers are all the same on the front end. Look at the revenue generated based on that increase in yield. So significant reduction in kilowatt hours used, electrical cost down, but look at the LED benefit. If you sold all of it medicinally, you got $23,000 additional revenue. If you did it recreation, if you sold it in the recreational market, you got $55,000 additional revenue, all for about $600 less electricity just to the fixture. That doesn't account any of the heat load. That is also reduced and adds to that reduction in electrical costs. That's significant because in two-month flowering cycles, this grower paid for all of his LED fixtures just in the additional revenue that he generated in this particular year. Next slide, please. That's it for me. Are there any questions?
So you guys are thinking, that is really cool, I want them, how am I going to pay for them, right? So the first answer is head over and check it out on the ROI calculator and figure it out for sure. But the second answer is Forever Green Indoors has relationships and is working with every single utility in the state of Washington. And most of them have promised rebates for switching to this land. So we can help you gather some of that money to help pay for these lights. So please stop over, talk to us, pick up our contact information. We can work with you, find out which utility you're working with, and see if they will help you pay for these lights. So, any questions? All right, come over and visit us. Thank you.